At the beginning of the film recaps, the three scientists are shown walking towards the beach. This story of the dead giant is told to us by one of Steven's men. The day before yesterday there was a huge storm in this sea. As a result, a dead giant washed up on the beach, and the fishermen were startled to see the giant. They notify the police, but no one believes them. When people visit the beach, they can only tell huge stories. The scientists decide to visit the beach themselves. They watch the giant in front of them. They have heard about it many times. Many people came to see the giant. No one touched him. Everyone was afraid of him. Stephen and his men estimate its weight at 80 tons. Stephen claims that predicting the age of a giant is extremely difficult. Stephen says when he sees his nose and eyes that he is a young giant. The scientists investigated as they stood near the giant's body. In the process, Stephen approaches the giant's hand. It looked like a pond. His hand was so big that it appears to be a pond after the water collects in it. Little fishes swam in it. Stephen says that the most shocking thing other than the size of the giant is that these giants still exist. They compare the people standing on the beach to a giant. They are incomplete copies of the giant. Stephen was shocked after seeing them. Meanwhile, his colleague goes upside down the giant. He informs those present that he is safe. Hearing this, they all rush to the giant's body. After this, they become happy. Someone was having a good time bouncing on the giant's body. Stephen won't even touch it or go for it. On the other hand, his colleagues made notes about the giant. The number of people who played with the giant decreased over time, because they all went to their homes. Stephen comes here again after 3 days. His interest in the giant increased. He claims he has no problem watching the monster. The giant seemed to be more alive than the people around him. He noticed that some children were sliding on the giant. Some people were preparing to cut up this giant. He decides to stop late near the giant, so there will be none near the giant. As he approaches the giant, he notices that the giant is decaying. Parts of his body looked strange. He notices the girl on the giant's ear. She was using the giant's ear as a chair. Stephen notices that the giant's youthful appearance is fading. He doesn't look young now. He states that due to the long stay at sea, his tissues were damaged. Because of her, his body was damaged. Stephen notices an insect on the giant's face. It went into his mouth. Stephen thought the giant would be decaying by the time the insects arrived. Stephen goes to the giant with courage. When he got to the giant's chest, he saw the giant's arm. It was totally dilapidated. Other parts were eaten by insects and birds. Here, a strange thing covers his eyes. It looked like a pond in his eyes. Stephen thinks that while he can see his shadow in his eyes, the pain is less than the pain that loneliness caused him. Then he leaves. The next day, Stephen sees that the giant's arms and legs were decaying. Now he was looking at his body. The giant body was insulted. There was no one but people who insulted him. Even the giant was also a human-like creature. The next day, when he reaches the giant, he finds that the giant's head has also been removed. Birds and insects eat the giant. Without his head, his body did not look like humans. With that, Stephen's relationship with the giant soured. That's what a dead body did. Then he didn't come to the beach for several days. After a few weeks, when he came to the beach, he is shocked when he sees this. The giant is completely exhausted. Only the giant's crumbling waste remained. Now everyone is losing interest in the giant. People forget about the giant's entrance after a few months. Various parts of the giant were everywhere as decorative pieces. One day, while riding his bike, Stephen notices a giant skull in the ground. He believes that if he searches, he will also find eyes and nasal bones. According to Stephen, the decorative pieces were well made from the giant's bones. Then the memories that are in Stephen's mind. Some parts of the giant were also placed in the circus. The scientist says that whoever saw the giant, they consider him a monster who was dead. To him, the giant was still alive. In his dreams, he often sees the giant leaving his city to return to the sea, collecting body parts from the city. This movie gives us a deep message. How does one enter other people's lives and leave an impression on them? He teaches people and learns from people. When he leaves the world, people forget him even for days, months, and years. Nobody remembers him. We saw it in the same way in this movie. How did the giant come and attract the others? Then something happened, and after days, months, and years, no one remembered him. In fact, this is the bitter truth of human life. People remember a person as long as he is alive. If a person dies after a few days, people forget about them.